So this is the miscellaneous as a conclusion. There's some general pointers, but the main one I keep mentioning is I know that some of you are here because your heart bleeds for people that are poor and underprivileged. And the one thing I do want to emphasize is we're not going to solve all their problems. I mean, we are going to try to give them some resource sheets so that they can pursue other avenues for work and housing and different things like that and supply them with some food, but we're not going to fix their poverty. We're not. What we want to do is give them the gospel and help them find their faith and trust in Jesus Christ, and then they have God to go through those circumstances with them. So I do want to mention that. I know it's very easy for us to get in those situations and make promises that we can't keep, and so we want to be cautious about that when we're going into this situation, because these are challenging situations, and people do have very complex situations, as we all do. So under suggestions for Bible study, the one thing I did want to emphasize, we're trying to keep that to 15 minutes on the front end because we just don't want to kill somebody where it's like you show up the first time and it's like, okay, a whole 30 minutes Bible study, and then next week they're like, oh my word, like what is this person doing to me? So we're trying to keep it to 15 minutes, and if their interest grows or they're asking questions, great. I don't think you have to keep it to 15 minutes, but that's just a general guide rail until they kind of open up or have some more questions or whatnot. And as I mentioned before, we're trying to go after a conversational kind of, you're talking back and forth kind of thing. And you're trying to ask questions and you're trying to expose them to scriptures. And so just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Under C, gospel resources, the only reason I listed those resources is because we have all those resources on hand right now. We're trying to collect gospel resources, and what we're going to do is have like a resource cabinet probably somewhere on this campus. My admin will work that out, hopefully. Sometime soon, and you'll be able to pick up your box, you'll be able to pick up some resource cards, you'll be able to pick up some gospel resources for free, and just be able to come and pick those up and hand those out. So if you know of questions that the person has, maybe we have a resource that's for free that you could pick up and say, hey, I thought you could have this kind of thing. And as well as we have these tracts available if you're interested in those or some of these books. So those are gospel resources and some of the things that we have available. D is community resource sheet. This is what I was talking about how we're trying to create a resource card. These are the categories that we're looking for resources in. Work options, shelter and home options, food locations, complicating factors, and family help. Those are the 5 categories that we're trying to look for resources in. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to find the good resources that are in our community already. So if you know any, please tell us. Contact us. Let us know if you know of any. We've found a couple interesting ones thus far, and so we're hoping to fill that out and use those on resource cards to help people out. The other thing I wanted to mention, I've been mentioning this probably more in life stage classes than anything, but when we talk about local evangelism, part of the reason we have this ministry isn't just because we want to benefit the community and share the gospel with people. We also want to benefit you. And the way we want to benefit you is I know that there's probably a range of evangelistic experience in this room. And so some of you may be very comfortable, very familiar, doing it your whole life. I mean, Hal's here. You can go with Hal. All the way to, I just popped out of the womb and I'm in junior high. So we got like a big spectrum, of experience levels. And so what we want to do is also through this process, pair you with somebody where if you have more experience, you can share that with somebody else. And if you have less experience, you can grow from somebody else. I mentioned this in the life stage. It's like if I want to learn about service, I would say, who couldn't learn anything from being paired with Carolyn Berg? I mean, if you got paired with Carolyn, if you're like, I don't know what service is about, well, just follow her around for a week and you'll learn what service is, right? So if you want to learn about evangelism, what do? You get paired with somebody who does it a lot, and you learn and you grow through that process. So we also want to benefit you through this process. If you're not feeling as comfortable as you'd like, well, we want to pair you with somebody. Toby Weiss is our resident person who's going to be helping us try to formulate that, and we're going to try to make pairings and try to create that dynamic where we can train each other, because what ideally would happen is everybody in this room joins on, gets experience in evangelism, and then through that after a year, if more people join on, we can always pair a new person with somebody who's experienced that and grown our ability to engage people, build relationships, share the gospel, because really it is a skill that we need to build and use. And quite frankly, when I was in college, I did a lot, and then I stopped after college, and you kind of lose it. Like, if you don't maintain it, you lose it. So we want to offer a way to maintain those skills and abilities to engage people, and then further that by helping other people to engage others in the gospel. So that's another side note. You can move to Appendix C, just some troubleshooting questions. I'm only going to cover 2, and then I'll go to the survey sheet, and then we'll get some questions in there. But troubleshooting-wise, what happens if the person is unresponsive? I think that's like the worst nightmare, isn't it? Like, okay, we're going to go over there, bring a box. What happens if they don't want to talk to me at all? Well, main thing is we're hopefully that'll be limited to a minimum because we're already having them fill out a sheet and agree to things before they come into the process. So we're hoping to drastically limit that by having that intro process with them. So we're going to vet people very carefully before they come into the process. So we do want you to be aware of that. As well, I think we would just come back to our initial commitment that, we want to help people physically, but we also want to help people spiritually. And our food isn't going to help you indefinitely, but the spiritual stuff we have could help you forever, for eternity. So, but we'll work through that together. If things like that come up, you could put it on the follow-up form. We'll talk with you. We'll talk about those situations. And each week that goes by, you and your partner will hopefully grow in those abilities to adapt and grow. The other thing is, how will partners be established? That's the other thing. Like, how does that work for, like, if you're not a family unit or already as a pair coming in? What we'll do in the pairing process is we'll take into consideration sex, age, and evangelistic experience. So we want to be able, in those situations, if it is a family with men and women, we're going to pair you up with a male and female to go in that situation. If it's a situation where it's just a single mom and kids, we'll just send 2 women. If it's a single dad, then we'll just, depending on the kid's age and sex and things like that, we may send 2 men, or we may send a man and a woman. So there's going to be different dynamics that we'll do, but that data will help us as far as age, evangelistic experience, things like that. So that's what we're going to do in establishing partners. So the other thing is, which I didn't really have time to kind of develop, but let's say you go into the process and the person says, yeah, I want to get saved and I believe, and they come to church, they get baptized. Part of the other thing I do want to encourage you in is this is a great opportunity for you to do individual discipleship with somebody because you saved them. So you're their father in the faith. You're their mother in the faith. So now there's a great opportunity for you to disciple somebody. And some of you may be asking, well, how do I disciple somebody? We're in the process of developing some discipleship sheets and things like that and resources that you could pull down and kind of study and look at to help you be able to develop that person from the ground level up and get them engaged in the church. So we'll have those resources in the coming months. Lastly is on page 24 is the survey. This is the survey we want you to fill out. I know it's a little intensive, so don't shoot me. I'll work you through this. So one is, are you a member of NorthCreek Church? The reason why, because any ministry at our church, you have to be a member. So that's something. If you're not a member, don't leave. Just come talk to me. We can work that out. Number 2, are you familiar with the gospel? And all I mean by that is if you're not too comfortable with that, we'd like you to go through the Gospel of Grace class that's online just so that familiarize yourself more with the gospel. How experienced are you in sharing the gospel? I think that's different from being familiar. And you could just put 1 to 5 on that slide rail. Have you listened to the Food Pak ministry training? The answer is yes. Are you signing up as a family unit or need to be placed with a partner? 6, do you have an F1 account or willing to start an F1 account for follow-up purposes? So yeah, we'll be creating those sheets on F1, so it'll be easy access. It'll take less than 2 minutes to fill out. It's just literally, what's your name? Were you able to do these things on the first visit? Do you have any problems, any questions? That's about it. And then are you willing to take 1 case a year, 6 visits over a 3-month period? Yes or no? And then do you speak any other languages? Because that's something that's also come up. If you speak Russian or Spanish, that's probably going to come into play in these situations, probably other languages too. So, and lastly, it's just, I just put the caveat on the bottom just to know that, we want to have this process be as smooth as possible. We want to have you be able to engage families and share the gospel and everything to go peachy keen and everything's lovely. But we do know that this process will require depending on God and trusting him through this process. And I think that's the exciting part of ministry. We get to trust God and see what God does. We get to pray and see God answer prayer. We get to lean on him and see how he works through these circumstances. So we just put that in there as well. So I just would love you to consider being a part of this ministry, joining us. reaching the lost in this area. And just, I think the vision of seeing this larger community reached with the gospel through helping low-income families would be an amazing thing. I just think that'd be amazing. And this is the start of that for Northern California and CHF and for the churches around us.